Apparently he gets called Hamish from time to time.
Oh. I had a dog called Hamish as a child. He was very lovely.
Really?
Councillor Cole to do our kind of views.
Ko hihiri hou rārama, hou e te whakaaro, hou e te tangata, o te aroha, te pō e here nei I a tātou, mauri ora ki a tātou, haumie, huie, tai huie. May clarity be yours, may understanding be yours, through reflection, through personal endeavour, through respect, the virtues which bind us as one. May we be filled with well-being, haumie, huie, tai huie.
For those who do not know, Councillor Connell and I went to te reo classes together for 12 months or so with the lovely Kaho, and Councillor Connell Belly was our go-to person for beautiful pronunciation.
Too kind.
So it's thank you so much. Thank you everyone for being here. I'm not going to waffle on. We're going to make a start. Kate, and thank you, Hayden. Unless there's anything we need to do beforehand, we just make a start.
It may perhaps by one introduction. Our numbers have been moving around until last night. The finance team was still working on the numbers, so we have some updated numbers to give to you. And it is good news, which is unusual for these times. Usually it goes the opposite direction, but they managed to wave some magic wand over it last night. Numbers down a little bit. We really do have a lot to get through, and we've got some big picture stuff we really want councillors to understand, and the steps that we worked through to get down to these numbers are really important to understand what we did and what the risks are around that, and whether you're happy to take those risks to get the number down to where we've got it to. So what I'm hoping is that we can stick to that high level for as long as possible to get through that conversation to get to the number before we dive into the minor decisions about the projects and the other stuff. Because once you've got to that number, you'll have a firmer view about your appetite for it going higher or lower, which will then inform the conversation about the actual decisions you need to make on the individual items. So we've got a presentation. These are worked that flows in a logical way. And I hope can you bear with us to get through that. But make sure you ask any questions about the things that have happened from stage to stage as we go through this process. Okay, that'll be a logical sort of way to create through it.
Thanks, Aileen. And just before we get started, just from a procedural point of view, there are no apologies. No conflicts of interest. And any other items not on the agenda? Okay, there being none, we'll carry on and ask Kate, are you? Thank you. Over to you.
Super. Yes, in the report, there is an additional, at least one additional resolution you need. I think we'll go between 6 and 7, or 5, no, yeah, between 6 and 7. There's an additional resolution around curbside collection pricing. As Aileen's already referred to, we've got quite the process to follow today. The report is largely organised by consultation topic. We did also receive a number of submissions that are out of scope of the annual plan, so they're on matters that we didn't specifically consult on as difference from what was forecasted at LPB. Things such as the Coromandel Community Library wanted to become a district library that are seeking for council support, those sorts of things. Addressed in a separate report to council. Submissions around boat rent fees, again, didn't consult on that. Other items such as that we advocate or work with Wakakotahi or community groups, harbour groups, that sort of thing, again, outside of the scope of the annual plan, but we have listed them in a table in the report, and we're able to put a staff response in that report to make that information clear and transparent available. So we do have a presentation for you, which can pop up on the screen. I'll kick off with a bit of an introduction, just about the process to date and what we've consulted on, and then Hayden, support as needed from the rest of the leadership team, and especially Donna, will lead you through the iterations of the budget as we've had to date. As Aileen's noted, we adopted the consultation document 2 months ago, so we know a lot more now about the current financial year. So they'll be able to provide an update. Bruce can provide an update on contracts and changes some of the costs around those. And then we'll have a bit of a pause where we can just set some housekeeping and make a plan of attack for the day. And then we've got slides on each of the individual consultation. And excluding the rates one, because although we asked the question around rates, it's obviously dependent on all the decisions that you're making. Okay, so the clicker. So just a little reminder about when you got to get done all of this. Hurrah! We've not long had hearings back at the end of April. So we've done the analysis, which is in that report. Later deliberations tomorrow if needed as well. Then after today, we'll take on all the decisions and we'll be developing the annual plan in earnest, and then propose and then come back to you on the 27th of June for adoption. There's just a little reminder, this is, you might recognise the diagram from the consultation document, with a reminder about where we got to that point. So we started off with a 7.7% rate increase that was identified in the long-term plan forecast for the year. If we added on inflation alone, it jumped up to 12.5%. We had a number of other rate increases, contract costs, the asset revaluations, and we found ourselves at 25.1%. So those were items that we workshopped and talked through earlier in the year. Then our financial team and operations identified some cost savings, and those were discussed further, and we adopted our consultation document with a proposed district-wide average rates increase of 11.4%. So that's just that history to date, but obviously to get there, we had a number of steps along the way, and then we've got the consultation, and then more recently with our current financial year budget revisions. So I'll hand over to Hayden now to run through that process. This is very similar to attachment B that's in your agenda, slightly updated. So I'm just going to hand out a large print for that. I'll grab my seat on it, or put it off to one side and come back and grab it.
Thank you.
So we started with this, Kate said the 25.5, which is pretty scary. Not too similar to happening across a lot of other councils. The biggest two, I guess, the two biggest drivers within that number were our retail collection spike, which a massive increase in depreciation, and inflation, which was certainly increased from when we did the 22 plan. And I guess the third thing was an introduction of the new solid waste contract, which had a $4.6 million increase, of which 1.2 of that was increases in the government. Well, the solid waste government levy. So yeah, they've been major increases. So we started with that. We got, obviously 25.1 We made the decision to unfund the spike, I guess, between the annual plan, I'm sorry, between ICP and what it has got to. We made the decision to apply on the town meeting, which got us down to second cut, which was 10.8. And then the third cut, we came up with a list of items we could take out, and I guess before we went out for consultation, we agreed that we would remove these items. The budget increases was to top up the disaster reserve, 425k, slight increase of 10k in the mineral reserve, new committees of 200k, and a rates review of, at that point in time, was 150. We had some property reductions whereby we were largely for maintenance and sort of investigation of these. There's some IT reduction deferrals. Personnel costs were around sort of training and health insurances. Sorry,
Yes, it was health insurance that we had proposed.
yeah.
We had proposed to put it on, we haven't actually gone ahead with that yet, but it was something that we were considering doing.
Grants and community events were the reduction in the community grants, the dropping the discretionary funds of 50%, a community board discretionary fund of 50%. Federal some funding, major events, and federal funding for beach shops. The reserves was to add in an extra 600k for retained earnings, and to not fund the Power New Zealand inflationary adjustment. Yeah. And then we had some economic development. We had some slight reductions in the feasibility study and the assessment package. Comms was to not do our environmental magazine, and some reduction in printing and stationery. And the investigation / maintenance was basically a whole lot of reorders, deferrals in terms of investigation fees, and some sort of spatial official plan changes, which we decided to loan fund because it's
Operational costs, but because they have a life, they don't just really affect 1 year. The future ratepayers will still get benefit from that work, so it makes sense to loan fund those costs. So that's what we did.
And then we had our capital reduction, so the first cut of capital projects from what we were originally going to have in the annual plan to what we want was, and then we had some miscellaneous
From memory, that was just like a whole of it.
little things here. Paving stores,
Yeah.
revenue.
A lot of unders and overs from some other things. So from a budget perspective, when we looked at the budgets, there were some things that went up and some things that went down, and that's the stuff was going on.
So we went out to consultation with the electrical floor. That's what we landed on. That's what we came out with. Since then, when we went out for consultation, you didn't have any of the storm damage stuff back then. We've got our storm damage capex for next year and storm damage OPEX. There has been, so the CapEx obviously got added back into our capital program. The infrastructure team has since done a further reduction, which will hand out soon, to the CapEx program to sort of offset some of that. Got an EV grant for recovery support, so it is giving us probably 50K towards the rates review, which was in the previous numbers, it's been reduced from 150 to 25K. Is money.
So I've left 25,000 in there so that we can carry on with the work that we discussed yesterday, which was, you know, doing that work around the revenue finance and policy, and also giving some more training and some more work, so that staff can get up to speed on our IBIS tool, so we can do a lot better rates modelling when we go through the LTP process.
And then the last one is just the solid waste, which is an approximate sort of, yes, that's to costs around the exact state items. It's
One region that's
Yeah.
DIA,
positive.
and there's still some risk around that.
Yes.
So, yeah, that's an assumption. But,
And it's and there is some risk around this. And one of the things around, like for example, with the CapEx reductions here, taking into consideration that this is quite as a rough cut, it hasn't been through the model. So we have, you know, we have some CapEx that's loan funded, we have some that's funded by the appreciations and some possibly funded by the BCs as well. So it's not, this isn't a science. This is something that the finance team have had to work through. They've only had the last couple of days to do it, so it hasn't been copied through the model or anything yet. So it may change, may move, but I don't think it will move that much. We think that it's a pretty good estimate.
We have what's called a rating calculator that we've built, and like Ron says, so many variables in it, like you know, is it district loan funded? How old's the asset? How long is the loan going to be for? You know, if it's got a subsidy, all these different things go in, and that affects the amount. It's going to impact on the rate. It's not as kind of simple as going, well, that's 600K and 48,000 people, and so there's a whole, there's heaps to it. Yes, this sheet that put together yesterday is basically the CapEx. It's sits on your case, so it's.
Well, so just for absolute clarity, when we walked in here thinking 12.38, we're now talking about 11.57 as our starting
That's
point.
correct. Because at the time that the report went out to you, we hadn't flowed through the CapEx reductions that Bruce had done for us, so that we haven't been able to flow that through the finance. Done that. That's what's brought back down.
Can I ask a request here that we've got questions and actual questions that we keep and answers in the table, because we really want to hear those. And thanks, Donna, for that, but the rest of us didn't hear what you asked. And Martin's got a question as well, so really, yeah. So thanks for that, but conversations going on, so I'm just going to repeat.
So, but my question was, for clarity, we're now talking about 11.57 rather than 12.38. And Donna said, yes, that's correct, because between the version we're looking at this morning and the one that we had in the report, finance team have been able to include, in particular, the reduction in expense associated with the CapEx items which have been removed by Bruce. I think that was the summary of what I did.
And these are changes, right? So some of them like that things.
Thanks. And I think Martin had a question.
So, and I've just confirmed it with in there that February 22 damage, storm damage should be February 23. But second question still related to storm damage. So the figures that we were told about yesterday are at 2 million odd for the roading at the 91%. Where are those?
So the, through the chair, they, this damage cost that you've got up here, through this line here and that line there. They, that's TCDC's portion of that, but that's the 9%.
It wasn't that figure 20-something odd million with
That's the total.
It's a total cost, it's the cost.
over. Okay.
And this up there is the cost for that and the impacts on that road. It's not necessarily the total cost because that is every year program.
But
It's loan funded.
Storm damage, yeah. They're 20 million,
Okay,
not
thank you.
paying, 20 million we're paying.
Yeah, and it's.
yeah, but that's still more than those figures, but it's loan. Okay.
That's one funds, that's what the cost of the loan
Thank you.
is.
Question for clarification.
Just to gain a clarification on timing, if between now and the end of the financial year, not far away, we get more storm damage, where does that sit? Is that going to the following financial? So, that in Wynn's budget. It's only 6 weeks or so.
So basically what will happen between now and then is that we won't be rating, we won't be able to rate for that storm damage in that time, but between the decisions that you make today gives finance only enough time to actually do, and also Kate and her team to actually develop the annual plan. So there'll be no more, we won't be able to flow any more changes through. So if there's another storm, for example, then that will be out of the cycle. Budgets that will have to come, next year for funding through and out of the cycle.
So once, this is basically the lot will give everything in, that's it. Thank you.
Yeah, and so this sheet here is, it's 600, this is the difference between what we went into consultation with and the proposed changes that, the infrastructure team had recommended along with adding the storm damage. So,
There are some quite significant risks with some of this. Probably can get Bruce to talk through that. Some of the changes here has been a 50% reduction in the renewals budget. And so I'll get Bruce to talk through the risks with that. And there's also some of the other decisions that, or suggestions or proposals here that have been made. Obviously, when we're reducing any budgets, all come with an element of risk.
Right on the interest. Good morning. Yeah, so as Donna said, the proposal that we've kind of worked on, like we've gone with the team around CapEx, does come with some risks attached to it. So cutting renewals to 50% of what we initially planned is not something we kind of do lightly or really want to do, but it's about cutting the cloth suit and clearing the decks a little bit with all the extra work that's coming in. So this approach carries with it some risk. And I suppose the other thing we'd say is that it's likely moving forwards in this way is that you'll see us again through the year. We'll have to come back from time to time for out of cycle requests for things which do crop up that we obviously haven't accounted for here because we've taken a really serious kind of serious cut to the program. So renewals is definitely one area, and there's a number of projects that we've actually pulled out. That obviously happy to answer questions and happy to have that discussion now regarding the proposed CapEx changes that have been made. And obviously, as Donna said, this has all happened quite rapidly. We've had to move very fast with these things, and so
as normally happens, you do stuff and then, you know, you lock it into the agenda and later on, and, you know, you wake up at 3 in the morning and think, maybe we should have done this slightly differently, you know, so I anticipate there'll be some changes and tweaks as we move.
Just before we do dive into that, we'll just flip to the next slide. So I thought it was really important. We just never got a bit about what we'll face in the coming 12 months. And so this is our rainfall data, and I'm sure you've seen this graph, and I've got various variations on it, but everyone knows we've been a ridiculously wet year and it's unprecedented and nothing we've ever seen before. And the likelihood is we're going to continue having events now well into next year. So you can see we already had our annual rainfall. And so I guess the civil defence staff and the team are really concerned that we're going to keep moving back into response. And so we've got a number of drivers that led us to ask Bruce to chop as much CapEx as we can. And that's one was rates rise, but cutting CapEx doesn't really impact the rates that much. There's sort of small changes, but probably more importantly, we've got 91% for our roads. We've got a lot of roads we need to fix, and we need to fix as much road as we can in the next 12 months. So making the best use of our staff to get that done while we have the 91% really requires us to clear the decks a little bit so that we can actually focus on that. And we also need space for the unexpected, because we are likely to be plunged back into events. And if we've struggled to deliver our CapEx in the past, we're going to struggle even more in the coming 12 months. And I just want to caveat that too, that actually if the sun comes out and everything's wonderful and we actually have some capacity, we can actually come back to you with a report to bring forward our expenditure to actually do some stuff that we've made space for without creating a rating impact in the current financial year by overcommitting at this stage. And we completely understand there's a whole lot of pain in that in terms of the projects. And at the end of the day, that's your call. And if you want to add them back in, we can add them back in. But we will caveat that by saying we need to preserve staff capacity for events and for that roading damage.
Just a couple of questions. What's proposed BH annual plan? What's BH short for? Oh, okay. Fine.
Might do anyone know that else.
So now we know who the bad guy is. Just so I understand, when you're talking about renewals and cutting 50%.
Yeah.
So that would be things like the work the 100,000 you were going to spend on repairing footpaths is now going to be 50K because the person who would have done the other 50K is going to be fixing a road. Is that kind of what I'm hearing?
Yeah, that's you kind of get to it. So we plan to go and renew a whole lot of water pipes. You know, we might say we've got 10 projects for replacing water pipes around the district. We'll pull it back down to 5 projects. Those other 5, we're going to try and stretch those and see if we can make it through till the following year to the LTP.
Right, because that frees up resource.
And yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bruce, is there any residual Three Waters funding that we're still expecting, or have we had everything that we're ever going to get there?
I think we've had everything at this stage. Well, there's talk, there's nothing on the horizon that we can see. They're still talking about the no worse off funding, but the no worse off funding doesn't come until after the entities stand up. So
it's not a source within discussions.
No, it's for kind of like adding stuff into your council and your communities to kind of make sure they kind of maintain some vibrancy. You know, the negatives of the water's going, you kind of offset that with some money in other areas. But yeah, that's not till 26.
That's post 2026.
Correct. Yeah.
I just a question, Bruce. I see that there's no footpath rehabilitation at all now in the BH plan. If there's one, but the other areas seem to retain it, but that's fine. One thing that really is noticeable is potholes. Am I reading this right? The footpaths.
Sorry, I'm just having a look at this.
Footpaths is in the unchanged.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So footpath 11 for Coromandel is still in there. It's just not shown as a separate line.
Oh, so it is in there somewhere in that.
Yeah, so there's 30 grand of stuff that's still in there.
Oh, I see.
30 grand still in there.
My next question was,
Yeah, 8,992 in the long-term plan.
yeah,
It's gone up to 9,000.
I understand.
That's a big.
The document that's just been circulated from Hayden and Donna is just showing what's changed, the differences. It's not a full CapEx list.
That's my question.
Right, and we will be coming back to all that topic by topic, so we've got all the first up to get through.
Yeah.
And we'll
Oh.
hone in on CapEx as our single consultation point.
So with the, some of the projects being cut to allow the clear decks for roading, presumably there's still the option that if some magic funding comes from central government, and we've been told about this $1 billion for cyclone recovery in different regions, those projects could be taken off the shelf and funded with some of that money, or would we still be looking, would that still eat into our capacity to deliver projects as far as resource, staff and?
Sorry, it's just a big question.
So if, so there's some projects that were not, that being taken out of the CapEx, but if some government funding comes along, then we can take those projects and say, hey, central government, we want to do these projects. Okay.
Depends what government don't tend to fund things that are already in these plans. They've got money into places unless it's.
But we've taken them out of the.
If we take them out and potentially use government money to drive, but it depends on the terms of that.
Because kind of what we're hearing is we're taking those out because of a inability to resource.
So I think through the chair, I think the answer to that is we consider at that time, we look at it and go, how is everything else going with our existing program? If we suddenly get some government money in January next year, and things have gone well in the first 6 months, we might go, we've got capacity to deliver that. Or we might say, look, we need to bring in an additional project manager within that government funding that we've got, so we actually can now deliver that project. So I think there's no definite yes or definite.
Oh, no, I didn't want to.
Yeah.
Can I suggest that we have a general acceptance that we spend other people's money first?
Yeah.
So should money drop out of the sky, then we prioritise that and deal with it.
Yeah.
And there'd be a staff report around that, yeah.
Thank you.
Very good.
So are you asking, will we have some shovel-ready projects? Is that what you're asking? In terms of, are we going to get some of this stuff into a shape that if money did fall from the sky, we'd be like.
I think what I'm asking is, yes, we might get some money for it, but Bruce and the team are saying there's a lack of resource to be able to make that project happen, whether it's staff or contractors to be able to do the work. So I guess I'm trying to work out as if some money falls from the sky, whether we can look at some of those other projects. I seem to get a feeling we can, and then we'd bring resource in as part of that money. I think it's a very clumsy way of asking my question. I'm sorry.
Well, I think if I go back to let's spend other people's money first.
Yeah.
As our key driver, and we'll find a way to do it. The thing with government funding that often happens is they'll fund the CapEx, but not the OpEx that it takes to deliver it. So there are some questions to ask. And the other thing with government money is when it drops in, you've also got to think about the ongoing maintenance and depreciation costs once you got whatever the asset is.
Yeah.
So they dream up something that they think you need and fund it. There's no such thing as free money. You might have to pay for the office to deliver it, and then send you the maintenance and depreciation there. So lots to consider when we think about government money. But,
Yeah, it looks like a reshuffle of money and resources to me, isn't it? And I think that's what we're trying to achieve. The TIP funding options would still stand, would they?
Correct, yeah. Yeah,
Right,
so
and would be resourced?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, so the team have been working with Lorna and her team very hard on the applications and everything, so, yeah. Again, come back to those length points, we got the people's money first, so.
Yeah.
I think also to be clear, and coming back to the discussion that we had with Stephen yesterday around what he calls sprint. Some of that stuff will be very specifically project focused. In other words, Washington Tahi working in conjunction with us will identify mentioned a number of 50, with a lot of grey area around that. So the funding coming through for that, it will be specific projects, and it's unlikely that we'll have the option of saying, well, here's some money, we're going to shovel it this way or that way. It'll be quite targeted, but too early to say.
And the options also have NZTA, get the funding and deliver the project, and we take on the asset at the end of it.
And that discussion.
Our guys working a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, we've got to try the bonds.
So where we, for example, don't have the capacity to invest in some of our local roads, Takakura Glen 309, Colville, Port Charles, places like that, that partnership with them is an option that's being actively discussed at the moment, but it's not without its officials. But as Aileen says, I'll give us money first. Okay. Thank you.
Your worship, I thought, if you don't mind, the point of the presentation was to explain how we got to write a little bit of background, answer any questions that's on the table around how we got there, talk to you about the risk, and then obviously throw back to you in the room to see how do you then want to deal with the process of going from the report in terms of keeping a big picture, or whether you want to jump into the details. So I just wanted to pause and say, have we adequately, this slide here was to just make sure we've adequately given you information about how we got to those numbers.
I would just like to ask whoever authored the BHCOM,
No one knows.
Bruce, as you were going through this, you were thinking about your resources and your ability to deliver rather than the importance that we might ascribe to a particular project. So, for instance, you've taken out Totara Valley.
Yeah.
You haven't taken that out because you think, well, Thames doesn't need it. You've taken that out because the resources necessary for maximising the 91% or whatever it is, they would need to come. So
correct. I've taken a very black and white practitioner's view on it. I have not tried to be a politician and look at any prioritisation about what I want around this table. Councillors and the mayor will decide to prioritise what's most important. So I haven't even considered that. You know, I haven't even looked at that and gone, actually, this is a really good project. We should keep that in mind. Getting stayed away from trying to be a councillor. So I've taken a very black and white approach, and as you mentioned, fully expect there'll be discussions around the table, regarding priorities, and I haven't stepped into that space.
Thank you.
So in terms of actually making this plans, it's more than just doability. Each project has got its own, it's delayed for this.
Correct. Yeah.
The problem with this. Yeah. So there's a bunch of other reasons.
Yes. Yeah. I meant to add that actually. I think there's so many different plans that are considered, so there's individual projects have got their own challenges around what the processes might be and the delays that kind of get introduced into projects through various other stakeholders and other processes. So there's that, there's financial impact, there's the doability of the resource. So it's all those things are all kind of factored into that. And I kind of sometimes I forget that because I'm so used to looking at all these projects and generally knowing exactly where they're kind of all at. It's like, okay, well, no, this is actually not going to happen that quick. So that's one that can actually kind of go on pause. This one's moving very fast. X, Y, Z that can't go on. So there are a number of factors. I think.
Thank you.
So, can I just get a steer? We are moving forward for the moment at the overview, the big picture stuff before we get down into detail. Is that how you folks want to drive this? I'm happy with that. I'd rather get a wider picture first and then dig down into detail. The rest of the councillors are comfortable with that. We will get into the detail, but let's go through with that bigger picture. Okay. Any other questions?
I guess the important thing is that you've understood and asked the questions around the information you've seen so far, and particularly dug into the risks and gone through what is
got your risks, okay, can we go? So I can go through these risks. So remember, we looked and we used as much of the as we could. And that first cut to soften the rate, I think it was 50%, something like that. Well, the risk with that, there is a risk that we have to be aware of, and that is with this current financial year. So with costs increasing this year, when we come to year end, we have to, if the costs have gone over what we've budgeted for, we have to be able to fund those somehow. So retained earnings is always our first point at year end when we go over budget. So there is a risk there, and there's a caveat there that those retained earnings may not be available to soften the rate. But that is a risk, and I guess what would you say that's probably a medium moderate risk at this stage?
That is.
Yeah. And that may mean I guess it's a tricky one because the risk that we're taking is that we've taken those retained earnings now for next year. So they're actually not going to be there at year end, because by the time when we've adopted the annual plan, we would have taken those retained earnings into consideration. If we then have to go and use them after when we're doing the year end process, we're going to be short of it. We're going to be short next year. That's what that amounts to.
At some stage today, will we see what our retained earnings look like for our various boards?
At year once we've done year end, yes, the retained earnings, and we'll come through with the annual plan. There is the retained earnings table and the actual annual plans again.
Because it's different for all the boards. We haven't all. Some have used all. Some have used 50%. So it would be useful to get a sort of indication of what's sitting in that fund.
Yeah. We did bring it. We did bring that.
I know we've seen it.
Yeah, that one of the workshops or meetings that we had when we were talking about using those retained earnings. We did bring what we predicted that would be for each board.
Right.
There. And then we'll be there in the report. We can pull them back out for you.
That'd be useful to see.
So will that wash up how's that going to fit the budget timing?
So, well, this is the risk, I guess, this is what I'm saying, that the risk is it doesn't. So basically we would already have adopted the annual plan with a view that the next year we'll be using some of those retained earnings, that's right. So it may be that some of those retained earnings may not be there.
Yeah.
So then we might be short next year.
Forecasting what the retained earnings will be now at year end, and that might be different from year to year end.
Is that an OPEX effect on the rate rise? It's an OPEX. OPEX in it.
Yeah. And our forecast, it's tight. It's what our forecast is. It's very tight depending on these remaining 2 months of the year.
And that's why the budget revision has been such an important piece of work, because what that is allowing staff to forecast what we think we will land at year end, so that we can say, so, mitigate what the risk is to using the retained earnings.
So just 2 questions around that. One is, why do you say medium and not low? And secondly, does history give you any indication, like what has happened with retained earnings in the past 3 or 4 years?
Yes, so typically what happens is we do a March reforecast and people are pretty conservative. So they go, we're going to spend all this money and it looks real bad. And then when we come in to do it, there's actually more retained earnings than you thought. And I guess I'd say the same with the smart revision. There's probably people that have forecast are going to spend money that I would say in some instances it's pretty optimistic given the shortage of contractors, the weather and all of that. So if they don't spend their money, then they have to they're expected.
It's very typically in people are managing operational stuff very conservative. They don't want to get caught out. They don't want to come back saying, "Oh, they didn't have enough money." And so, as Hayden says, they'll forecast what we think it is. They'll factor in all the risks because that's how we operate. And then if things don't eventuate, we come in under and we've got a bit of healthy money that can go back into retained earnings. We don't want everyone to sit there and like have this massive big fat cushion that they kind of budgeting in. That's not good budgeting. So we're always struggling to try and find the right balance point, the right line between making sure we're not kind of cutting things too close, but also not padding it out too much. And it's quite hard because this is all operational stuff. So anything can happen, not just weather, but pipes can blow up, you know, anything can happen. So you really don't know. So you make your best endeavours at the time, and then you just cross your fingers for the next 2 months and see where you go.
So you guys as a management team have kind of made that call.
Correct, yeah. So we sat down, went through it. So Hayden, Donna, myself, Aaron, who works with me in finance space. We went through all those budgets. Hayden spent a lot of time then with my managers looking at going, do you really need X, Y, Z? How are you going to spend it? You know, we've really tried to make sure they only pay it out. And we generally don't get anyone who's going, yeah, no, it'll be sweet. I don't need hardly any money till the end of the year. That doesn't happen. Like I say, the personality type is not like that. So it's normally us trying to go, have we right sized it more? Yeah.
And it's challenging. We did challenge.
We do.
We do a lot of challenging.
And like Bruce says, the work might be scheduled during, it's all scheduled and something happens.
Yeah.
We don't, retained earnings is not something you really want. So it means you're doing the job, you're not getting it. So having a lot of retained earnings is not a good reflection on the task. So.
And probably putting it another way, I'm talking to you about the risk of retained earnings, and that's probably the worst case scenario of what could happen. The work that we've done, we're comfortable that we can still manage through that because we're at.
Yeah, I guess the reason I say meetings is because at this point in time, I don't think there's many moving parts. It's just there's inflation, there's interest, there's weather events, there's it's just it's crazy sort of.
Yeah, lots of moving parts.
So I suppose you've also got to have that security of funds for reactivity. So if something else does happen, that you've got a little bit of backing here, a bit of security to react those unforeseen things. You know, the mayor just tempted the gods with his comment about another weather event. I'm touching wood furiously.
Can I just get, some perspective on this? The retained earnings that we're talking about is $2 million, 2.4%. That's applied to OPEX. So that's the $2 million is the amount that we're talking about in the big picture as the 50%.
2.6 to 600.
Is that the council retained earnings or is that the total?
So it's
Thank you.
Can I just ask, so on, we've got those voting X's at the bottom. Then this document, right down the bottom, there's the roading district stuff related to storm events, which has got like 6 million, 4.5, 6.6, 4.5, 1.2, etc. So
Remember, Martin, those are the differences, those are the changes.
And that list is the full cost, the other one's just our portion of that cost.
yeah, at some point, in the Waka Kotahi money comes in.
Yes, it comes in.
The 91% would come in.
Right. Okay, but it can't be listed here because it's, okay, yep, all right.
No, it's all because this is a change to the CAPEX program, which is the full program. It's not just, this isn't just about the change to the CAPEX program.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Not how it's funded.
Right.
We move on to non-funding and depreciation. So you remember that a few papers have been through, and I think it was a lot of this committee. And we as the council committee made a decision to not fund portion of depreciation on the extraordinary increase that we saw in our asset revaluation. And that the 8% that that we look at that cut down from 25 down in that first patch. I guess like the risk of that is the risk always with not funding depreciation is that you're not going to have the depreciation reserves available if for your asset renewals. However, you might recall back in that paper, I think that I'm so happy that that risk is low. We did a analysis of all the risks in that paper, and we're satisfied that we have got enough reserves in our depreciation reserves for renewals going into the future, and to cover like what the next 10 years or so. So it's yes, whilst that we can do this, we think we can do this for 1 year. I wouldn't want to see us doing this continually every year, because then we would get into a situation where down the track we wouldn't have enough renewals, enough depreciation reserves to fund renewals, and that sort of has a really intergenerational equity aspect to it.
So what then happens next year as far as funding those increases? Sorry, the following.
That's an LTP discussion.
So I can for another day.
There's an LTP discussion, and that's
But are people comfortable with the fact of, I mean, we will have to grab that can at some point and not kick it.
Absolutely.
The large part of
James, I guess.
this issue though, why that we, let's go back to that report I was talking about way back, was because we're seeing this huge spike. And we're saying, is this huge spike going to actually come back as start resetting around costs come back? You go and go, man, we can charge everyone depreciation spike. Eventually it comes back, we've got options now, we've got it back here. It's a bit too kind of issue. So I'm gonna.
You look back at the past, you can see the spikes and they come down, and you don't want to draw a line through it, and that's your average, and that's what that you want to make sure that you're within that you're managing your depreciation reserves, and we are within that.
So just to put a bit of perspective on that, I've had a number of discussions with other councillors about what position they've taken on this. It's not that we're not funding depreciation, it's just that increase in valuation of 393 million. Not one single council have said, yes, we are funding the increase in asset values. They've all taken exactly the same position that we have, and working the average, because it's a very unusual spike. And even if we went back and looked at it today, I think we'd see probably it would have fair assessment dropped down a bit to bring us back closer to that average. So we're not alone. All the other councils.
I think we've spoken enough about the renewals reduction and the risks around that. Is everybody comfortable with that one?
Sorry, Donna, can I just to clarify that the wording of that not funding depreciation is slightly throwing a different perspective on it. I think it's not that we're not funding depreciation, it's that we're not funding the increase in valuations of the assets.
That's right.
So that's
And through the storm events, well aware that there's risks, and we've just talked about that and what happens if there's another storm event between now and year end. And staff particularly, I guess we've spoken about that, especially in regards to the CapEx, delivering CapEx, but also in relation that sort of ties into the future, another storm event as well. Like if we do have another storm event, that impacts staff's capacity to deliver BAU.
So we've got a medium risk, we've got a low risk. We've got renewals reduction, low risk.
Yeah.
Further storm events. Well, mere lenses aren't going to be in, so low risk. You're the closest to the almighty here. And staff capacity. Aileen, what's your view on the staff capacity risk?
If we don't have any storm events and we run with what we've got here, then we'll be fine. If something happens, we go through challenges. But I guess what probably want to think about the cumulative risk and all that. So there's a bunch of risks there, and we can add them all up. While they all might be manageable in their bits, add them all up. I guess we go into the next year with significant risk on the plate.
Can I just, I'm sure everyone is aware that the government put some orders of council in place, allowing 5 councils, I think, including us, to delay some of our BAU on the basis of the storm events that we'd faced. And you all know what we've gone through over the last 3 months. The fact that we're sitting here now doing this annual plan process on schedule, and there's a number of other, I know it's put stuff a lot of pressure, a number of other BAU things that are on track, I think is a testament to how well the staff and the team and Aileen's team have worked under very difficult circumstances. It gives me personally a lot of confidence that no matter what comes, that they've got no pressure, but it's you know, it's a huge testimony to the work that they've been able to do under very difficult circumstances, that we are on track now, because we had the option, didn't we, of delaying and moving back.
So last week, we started to have a discussion about, is this just too quick? Have our elected members got time to get their heads around it? Have we done everything we need to actually get to this point? We did actually consider whether we should delay, but we had a bit of a conversation about the consequences of delay. And I think we are so close to what we are, we're going to make it if we push on through. The consequence of a delay is that you can't set your rates. And what that means is when you invoice at the same rates that you've had in the last year. And so when you do actually then adopt, you then squeeze the same rates rise into the last 3 invoices of the year. And that's not good for council, and it's not good for our community. So having worked through all the challenges, and it also put this Bellway work out. So eventually we've got to deal with it. And although government are they're putting on the table, we can make things delay. Even the councils in Hawke's Bay are saying, don't have us delay, just give us a lesser burden, compliance burden, because if you delay, what you're doing is pushing that work out, you've got to do it at some stage. So I think most of the councils saying, if you can adopt, you should adopt, because you don't want those consequences. But, so when you're sitting in Wellington and trying to help, delay feels like a good thing to do. But actually it just gets us sort of really deep holes. So we did actively consider it, and we think it's the wrong thing to delay.
And it's that proverbial can kicking it down the road, it catches up.
So are you saying, Aileen, that, or Bruce, that none of the things in here are like delays of upgrading, increased standards, so water quality or any sort of stuff like that? Or is there an element of that?
No, not really. So I think drinking water standards upgrades that we're doing in our treatment plants, those are still in there as they were, because they are compliance activities. So again, this is one of the other, as we talked about, one of the other factors that I considered when I went through it. So there's lots of factors, and compliance is one of those factors that I had considered. So I don't want to make a situation that's, by not doing something which is then going to cause a flow-on effect. So, So one of the risks around the renewals is that you could increase your operational costs a little bit. If we're not renewing stuff, that sometimes can come through in higher maintenance. If you renew something, you might need to go and give another kind of paint or so there's a small amount of risk around some of those, but I think that's manageable and is low. Anything that's more than that, like compliance, I've made sure that we run onto it and are still going to deliver it.
Yep.
Yes, driving seat.
Yes.
Okay, so we've considered the OPEX And just run through an update or reminder of what we adopted for our consultation document, and those further cuts to try and address the rates increase. And our team have just run through some changes. The reason for doing a further revision of the CapEx list, that's about ensuring that we can deliver on storm recovery projects, being prepared should something unexpected crop up, and to ensure that we can deliver the program. And that then arrives us at a new rates increase of 11.6%. with all of those changes being considered. So if you are supportive of that approach, we can look at the resolutions and adopt them as they are. Or if you want further discussion, then we can take it a bit more slowly one by one. I'll hand over to Neil to decide on that approach and see from here.
So just in terms of process along, so that I clearly understand that, we've got the agenda that we're working through. We've got the suggested resolutions on page 3. Are you suggesting that we have the option of working through these resolutions one by one and ticking them off as we progress through?
Absolutely. So yeah, we can certainly accept them as they are, bearing in mind the changes that staff are recommending and what that results in the rates increased and the ability to build on projects. Or if you need to finish up on the next.
I think the councillors will want to have some discussion around some of the detail of these. Personally, I'm keen to progress through the stuff that we can and then give the councillors the opportunity to go into the detail. So in terms of your slide presentation, giving us a big picture, how far do we need to go through that before we start working on these resolutions?
And we're good to go now. So the next slide is on the OPEX program. So all it is right, so that's just a little summary of what was in the consultation document of those proposed budget changes, so we can work through those. We'll pick out which ones we want to discuss further.
So all right. So what we'll do is we've got some procedural stuff that we'll work through. So the first resolution is that we receive the annual plan deliberations report. So we can go through that.
Yeah, I might be jumping the gun, but with this new figure of 11.6, can we see how that breaks down into the community boards and what those rate increases look like? But I may be jumping the gun. That may be still to come. I don't want to get your slideshow. Yeah,
great. Have we got those in print, or do we need to?
I've got some.
Yes, sorry, I'm jumping the gun.
When you're ready for it.
Yeah. So can I get a second to start with, just to receive the report? So we'll go Delly and Martin. All those in favour?
Aye.
So item 2 is that we note the submission summaries and staff analysis and confirms that staff have considered all submissions and elected representatives, both written and verbal, to the proposed 2023-24 annual plan consultation document. So that's the process we've gone through. Can I get a mover and a seconder for those two? John and Peter, thank you. All those in favour?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, so number 3 is where we're endorsing the proposed OPEX adjustments. And this is the part where if councillors feel that you want more discussion around those, or we should move on through those.
I think we're going to look at
discussion around those.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll stop there and hand it over to Kate and Hayden just to go through. And the question that Rika had about community boards, is that going to be in this section, or does that get covered a little further on?
That's interesting one, isn't it? It's a combination of obviously both OPEX and CAPEX. So maybe it's worth just wondering if we circulate it and we could have a morning tea or something to digest it. Really to get it circulated now.
Okay, yeah. Everyone happy with that? Yeah. You take a look at what materials, have a cup of tea.
Yes, we can take OPEX and CAPEX in isolation. Got to keep that in mind.
And I would have also with CAPEX.
Thank you.
Once we have discussion on CAPEX, it'll go back. But
Any decision on this.
Gary, are you hearing us? We got Lee?
I've just turned my microphone off. I have to say that I'm still not dynamic, and I don't think you want to hear me coughing and spluttering. So I'm listening intently, and I've been sending a few things to Terry. I might even just send perhaps an email with some questions I've got going through my mind, which other people can consider and put questions if they want, but I'm keeping pretty quiet. Okay.
So Gary, we're going to email you some documentation, some spreadsheets, and we're going to stop and have a cup of tea while we.
Okay. I'll print that out and have a read. Okay. Thank you.
So 15-minute break.